So my name is Michael Heuer. I'm responsible for the DACH region, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And I got the pleasure to talk you through a little bit about what Keepit does and how we do certain things. But as I'm just sales from that perspective, I have our CTO here with us, Jacob, and our CISO, Kim. Yeah, we're going to introduce them a bit further themselves. And I have Markus here with me, who is going to demo the product a bit later, because the product has one big advantage. It's so simple that even a salesperson, sorry Markus, can present it. Yeah. Therefore, it's actually one our key steps when we're selling the product that we'll be showing it in the very first presentation, so that we are demonstrating how easy to use, and I hope you're gonna second that a bit later as well, that we are having a very easy product. So what do we do? SaaS data protection. Wonderful name. In these days, everything has to have a fancy name. We're even next level. So I guess next generation is out, but next level. So the interesting thing is that SaaS data protection actually means we're protecting SaaS or data in SaaS applications, and we do backup and recovery. That's literally the translation of that, what we do. We do that for those applications you see there. We're going to go into that a little bit more briefly in a second. But I got a question for you. Have you really thought about this, that your data in a SaaS application has to be backed? You don't have to answer it. I can tell you that when I was approached by Keepit about 2.5 years ago, I looked at this and I thought, Jesus, another business idea that I missed. Yeah, because I haven't really thought about this, that data in a SaaS application still have to be protected. Yeah, of course, any SaaS vendor takes care of it, that they're not losing it while they're using it, while they're operating the software for you. But what I also completely missed is that there are many reasons why you can lose data. Whether it's a cyber attack, which is mainly the reason why companies buy the product, but there are also all kinds of other reasons why you can lose data. And there can be simple things like you're changing the retention policy of emails as an admin if you're using Office 365, and all your emails can be easily gone if you set it in the wrong way. And there's no way that you can go back to Microsoft and call them and say, hey, can you give me back my emails? Because they're literally gone. And also the paper bin and these kind of things don't work. And it's all stuff where it doesn't come together. So therefore, I really haven't thought about this myself, and maybe you haven't either, but I can tell you a lot of customers don't do either. Please.
The first thing you need to think about is data recovery, not data protection. You don't care how protected your data is if you can't get it back. So it's data recovery usually what's the thing.
Yeah, I tell this to my marketing guys because I still love the term backup and recovery as well, by the way. Yeah, because we even had it at a fair where we put all this lovely new signage on it, and people came to us and said, like, what are you actually doing? Yeah, because data protection, especially when you use it in Germany, it has a special meaning. Yeah? If you just say SaaS Datenschutz, it's not the best way of describing that what we do. It kind of makes sense, what we do here in terms of the title, but backup and recovery is a bit more straightforward. That's the reason why I usually translate that, but I fully agree to what you've said. So we do it for Office 365, for Entra ID. Lots of companies missing that Entra ID is being attacked much more often these days than Office 365, Salesforce, the Power Platform and Power BI and Power Apps, etc. Google Workspace, Dynamics 365. What the heck was this one?
Zendesk.
Huh?
Zendesk.
Ah, Zendesk. No, this is Zendesk. What is this again?
So that's Azure DevOps.
That's Azure DevOps. Ah, Azure DevOps, right. I knew it, but I couldn't recognize the logo, maybe either. Anyway, so these are the 8 workloads we're currently protecting, and there's more coming, and we're going to talk about this a bit later. So, what do we do, and where do we do it? What we do, you've heard. We're doing it for about 10,000 customers across the world. In the meantime, there are millions of users there. We have offices all over the world. And we have, this is really important here, we have 7 data center regions. There's 2 data centers in each of these regions. You see them listed here. In Europe, especially Germany, Denmark is important. And recently we added Switzerland because Swiss customers would like to have the data sitting in Switzerland. That's the reason why we added this as well. That list probably will grow sooner or later as we're expanding further. And we got these 8 workloads. Of course, it's all certified. Probably the most important one is 27001. Usually here in Europe, that's what customers are asking for, but it's not just the data center, it's really end-to-end, the entire company and the service. Yeah, because some of our competitors have fancy claims Like we're operating on this and this cloud platform, it's all certified, true, but not your service. Yeah, we are completely certified back from the beginning to the end, if you like. So what do we have here? And that's really special. We have an independent cloud. We're not operating on any of the hyperscalers. We're not using any storage from any of the hyperscalers. So it's not based on Amazon, AWS, or on Azure or Google Cloud or whatever cloud. It's all our own data center. It's our own storage. It's our own hardware, our own links to the other SaaS providers, so we can suck the data and bring it back, of course, as well. We have a complete stack, software stack and technology stack, how we're operating it. This is where Jacob comes in and can explain it much deeper, because there are things in there which are really fancy, like blockchain technologies we're using, as well as that you don't have the ability in the file system to delete anything. That also automatically helps you to protect yourself against ransomware attacks. But again, Jacob is going to dive deeper into this.
If you're protected against being, what happens if somebody wants to use the right to be forgotten? And it says,
Excellent
I
question.
want to be forgotten.
Yeah, excellent questions. And so we have a way of doing it. And actually, Marcus, if you could show it later.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sure.
so we can show it live what we do, but there's a flag you can set that data can't be read anymore. But the problem with, as you would probably know, with RTBF is there are two articles which are important. I keep on forgetting which ones, 17 and 34, I think.
32.
32?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sales. The one says you have to forget, and the other one says you have to can't completely forget it, right? You still have to get it back, and we can do both.
And the key thing seems to be the legal aspects. It has to be tested in court. It's not enough to say that logically this means this and this, therefore we're okay. If the court disagrees with you, even if the court's not logical, the court takes precedence over your data scientist.
Yeah, I can't tell you right now whether we had really court cases really testing it from that perspective, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be ready to cover that. Yeah. But maybe when we show it later, you might want to add some further information back then so that we keep it together, if that's okay for you. Yeah, please.
Where are your data centers located?
In terms of the physical, you mean the data center provider? Usually Equinix only, right?
Equinix mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
Copenhagen.
Okay.
So worldwide or in?
So 6 out of the 7 regions are Equinix data centers.
Yeah.
But we seek out, this when we want to open up in the region, we seek the possibilities, how the network infrastructure look, and then we find. So for the 2 separate centers, we find 2 appropriate locations.
And you can give your customers the ability to choose
Yes.
where they want
To
to.
choose the region, yes. So if you want your data centers to stay in Frankfurt, you choose Frankfurt, and then we make sure that it stays in Frankfurt. We don't give you the address of the specific data center because we also need the flexibility to grow. But we definitely say it will stay in the region.
Yeah, follow-up question on that regarding data center and B, because you seem to have a highly resilient architecture. Are you doing that within the same, let's say, cloud provider in different regions, or are you also separating to have resiliency to different cloud providers?
We don't use cloud providers.
So it's your own hosted infrastructure
Yes,
on Equinix
yes.
code or whatever.
We rent the full space,
Okay.
we pay for the power.
Okay,
We run both the hardware, the software, and the network infrastructure.
Yeah, you get 2 + 2 copies. Yeah, so you have always 4 copies of your data, completely separated. And the 2 data centers, that might be important as well, because you usually get this question from banks or insurance companies: are they separated enough so that they are applying to BaFin rules and other rules, which are there? The answer is yes. It's not the 200-kilometer rule, but it's I think they're like, 2 kilometers? I'm not really entirely sure, but there's a certain thing you have to be separated in order to be Katastrophenfall sicher, catastrophe or disaster safe. Not sure what the term is. You might know, Kim. The term, like how you call it when you have to be separated far enough so that you're still okay.
Emergency and we would have 50 kilometers.
Yeah, something like this. Yeah, so please.
Mark, thank you, nothing. No, forget it, I'll ask it again.
Okay, cool. So we're doing a daily backup. We do 2 copies into each data centers, of course, fully secured, encrypted, and all that stuff, so that you really have sufficient, let's say, air-gapped, from that perspective, offline copies. So they went really deep to understand, like, is it offline enough? Yeah, in terms of rather having an offline copy in your own data center, which we very often been asked. We can provide that capability, but in real life, actually nobody's really using it because they understand, given that you're in a complete independent infrastructure, you have enough offline copies of your data, because this all works even if Microsoft or anybody else is down. You can still get your data.
When you say sufficient offline copies, suppose I have a piece of malware that keeps itself quiet for 5 years, in the hopes that by the time I actually execute it, you'll have run out of generations of offline copies. It can be very, the required number of offline copies can be infinite. How do you deal with that? So basically malware that gets itself in. Do you test systems for malware before you store them, so that you notice that malware is being introduced before you rely on that backup?
Yeah, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so no, we don't test, so we store a faithful copy of the data you have in your primary storage.
Yeah.
We store that faithfully in the backup systems, where it stays immutable. So if you have a piece of malware in your data set for 5 years, and then it activates, then you still have all of your good data leading up to today. So you have all of the many years of data history, which is immutable.
But you might have to go back in time 5 years, which would be
Well, so the thing with malware only. I mean, malware is a malfunction in your primary system. That tend to get fixed really quickly once it's discovered.
Yes.
So Microsoft or whoever will patch the primary system so the malware becomes
You
ineffective.
could argue some of Microsoft bugs to them and
Yes.
Yeah, you will only restore that what is needed, and you will leave the malware because you won't.
Yeah, because it will be ineffective. I mean, the day after it's triggered, it's going to be ineffective. What you need is to get all the broken data back, and you have that, so you can get the data back. The malware is not going to work anymore, and orders go to good.
But the social thing about this, though, having been involved in backup recoveries in business situations, even if what you're doing should work and should give you a clean recovery, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're always panicking that perhaps you've got something wrong, perhaps you've misspent instructions.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is about training and playing out scenarios to make sure that people are totally sure what they're doing.
That's a very important point, and it ties into also what we're going to demo. I think that there's a couple of things, and maybe you will also talk about that, but the fact that the system is both simple to use, it's very quick to go in and find small amounts of data and restore. What tends to happen is that companies that go with Keepit will not have this as the disaster recovery solution that is locked in the basement that no one is used to using. What actually happens is people tend to use it regularly for little things. And then when you need the big things done, you have multiple people who are actually used to using it. So you have a more natural, it's more natural that people will be acquainted with it. But you're absolutely right that any company should do serious planning for disaster recovery, of course.
So without going into too much detail here, there are plenty of customers we have in all the different verticals. There's no specific vertical where we are particularly strong. There are sometimes, like some companies are popping up a bit more often than others, but technically it's all over the place. Yes, there's not like a finance solution or anything. Yeah, we have customers in all these verticals. You also find, when we talk about Germany or DACH, a lot of customers here which we have on the website. And speaking of the website, we actually just, we go there in a second. We just launched our German website after 2 years being in the business here. So yeah, this is a big day. Today is our official launch day of the German website. But anyway, you find that these information here as examples. And there are, of course, plenty of more customers in the DACH region. We have here from very big to very small. Not all of them we can name, but there are a few ones which you can recognize. There are more actually also on the website. So why all these customers are choosing us, I would like to summarize. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but on a very high note, first of all, they all understand it's a very secure and a very independent platform. The majority of them actually choose us once they get the idea that you have to have a backup for SaaS data. They choose us because they say, if I really do a backup, I want to be as far as possible away from the infrastructure I'm backing up. Yeah, and that's the reason why solutions where you might use also a hyperscaler storage system is not the solution that they're really aiming for. They want to have it really far out. And that's what we can deliver. And we go more into details like how we secure it properly. Cost control, of course, is the German thing here anyway, but anywhere in the world as well. We give you one price. It's for all users. I mean, it's per user, but that includes all storage. There's no limit to it. You can have a retention up to 100 years or 99 years to be precise. And you can actually upload, download as much as you want. You don't pay anything for it. You don't even pay anything if you exit. So you can download everything, whatever you like. You don't pay for it. If you think that should be normal, we agree. But when RFPs are running or being run by our, especially the enterprise customers, do big RFPs, they very often miss this point when we tell them maybe you want to look at these points. They figure out it's going to be very costly with a couple of our competitors to get the data either back, or if you want to exit, that you then have really big trouble to really get it out, or even you have to pay out for it. Please.
So in which industries you have more customers? I didn't get that.
I can't tell you. It's all over the place. It's there's no particular vertical where we have more.
The reason for that?
Because everybody has Office 365, so therefore they're using it. I would turn it around a little bit. I can tell you in Germany the public sector is a little bit less. Because they don't use Office 365, but that's the reason, and the only reason. But in any other country, we have public customers down to healthcare, public sector, whatever. We have power utility companies, business services, logistics, whatever. It's all over the place. There's no particular vertical.
But it's always these 8 SaaS applications that have been on the. So if a customer has a database that he says he wants his database also to be say protected
Correct.
by Keepit, we cannot do this because you're on the SaaS only.
So we are having these 8 workloads, which are the specialized workloads. We're going to bring something out there soon. I can't be more specific. That's up to him. Soon, where you can connect other SaaS applications, and if they're SaaS applications and they follow certain standards, and then we can back them up. So there's something coming because we have a lot of customers who are coming to us. And I'll just give you an example of a big retailer, and that retailer actually bought container ships during COVID times, and they have some Indian, I think, software SaaS thing running on it, and they do the logistics for the containers and what is in the containers. And they have no clue whether this data is properly backed up, and they would love to have a copy of that data, because otherwise they can't trust that if something goes wrong there, they have a way of finding their ships again, as well as what is on the ship. Probably they can find the ships, but what is really in there might be a big question mark. So cost control in terms of you have predictable costs, big thing. It's outstanding simplicity, and we're going to demonstrate this in a second. We have a maximum functionality, because very often, sometimes when you see this very easy way of operating it, you might think, maybe can't do much. When we started here, we had a company, actually I think I can name it, it's ADAC, the Automotive Club, which is doing the service, the Yellow Angels. And these guys actually approached us and said, we couldn't really find a solution with your competitors, because they have one issue which we're going to come back to in a second. It's related to GDPR. So therefore, we may want to go for your solution, but please tell us what you can't do like your competitors. And we said, why are you asking this? Because you're a small, younger company than the other one. We said, true, but usually we can do more. And everybody says this. At the end, they figured out, actually, we have the maximum functionality that you can have. Nobody really beats us on the functionality part in any of the solutions, but combined with a huge, easy way of using it. And you're going to see this in a second.
So if you could ever ask you about your strategic plan, because if you were sold to Oracle, they might change their decision to purchase you and things like that. So are you privately or publicly held?
Private.
You're private. And you have no intention of selling yourself to Oracle or IBM or something?
Well, A, I would be not be able to say that. B, I don't know it. And C, I'm pretty sure our co-founders, which I still have the majority of the shares, are probably not interested in Oracle.
Okay, but is that the sort of question your customers ever ask?
Sorry, say it again.
Is that the sort of question your customers ever ask?
Interesting enough, rarely to nothing, to none, or yeah. So I rarely get the question. Of course, when we talk to really large enterprises, they like to see our books, yeah, so that they see we're a solid finance company, and we are. Yeah, otherwise, we wouldn't have companies like Bundesdruckerei or some of the names you've seen here, like Porsche, etc. They wouldn't trust us with their data. But yeah, I was surprised, to be fair, yeah, when I joined here 2 years ago, how less I get that question, because you have to trust that party you give your data. Yeah, but that trust we've earned with those millions of customers we have in the
Being private, it helps too, because if you're publicly quoted, you can be pushed around by share prices and the press. If you're privately held, you can assess the quality of your vendors, and you can sort of trust them.
Yeah.
Or not trust them, depending how you feel.
Yeah, so I'm sure, we're going to get bigger, but we'll see. So I can't really answer that one. So I was talking.
What is an interesting question?
Yeah.
On that one is, your customers should ask that question, because, like with everything else, it is important to know what, if this goes wrong, what will happen with the data that you guys have. And in maybe even a later stage, how does this tie into my backup recovery, my BCDR plan within the company? Because you've got some data, but others got some data. The backup data needs to come back once there is an attack or once there isn't a disaster. How does it tie into each other, and making sure that if I have to recover everything, that I do it with the right steps? And where do you look into other solutions for that? Because that would be important for a company as well, right?
Absolutely. So, regulations like NIS2 or DORA and other things which are currently happening are of course pushing that as well, that you have a business continuity concept. One of the reasons why companies also come to us now and say, by the way, we forgot something, the SaaS data stuff. Yeah, especially Entra ID, they're really concerned about. So that ties into that you have a proper business continuity concept. Yeah, and that of course would include how do you recover your SaaS data. Yeah, and as part of that, you would have that planning.
Yeah, okay, but you don't hook into other solutions
Like?
to help the customer with that. It's really up to them to make sure, okay, if I have to recover, if my AD is gone, I first need to do this. All the steps should be within the business continuity plan. And you come into that with your own solution, with your own backups that you have on that one. But it's not that you hook into.
So there's only two. There's the primary service, so Entra ID or 365 or whatever, and then those are the two components. So there's no third or fourth parties involved in.
But there's not. You don't have partners that you work with to make it easier for the customer.
I was just about to come to this. We sell only through partners. Yeah, when we have the Bechtlers of this world and Serviceware and Dignum and others, which are really specialized in certain parts of the organization on these kind of things, and they then usually assist customers in these kind of business continuity concepts. Yeah, but we also tie into Splunk, for example, as a CM, Sentinel to come, so that. We are supporting that kind of request as well, because sometimes customers want to have their data also popping up on our dashboard only, but also in other systems.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me add 3 points here why customers choose us. As I said, very secure, very independent. You have your cost under control. You know what you're going to pay, and you don't have any hidden cost. It's super easy to use, and you get still the maximum functionality. But one key point is Keepit is a 100% European company. It's a Danish company. We operate everything that is critical out of Denmark or with Danish and European resources. That means we don't have any sub-data processors, and that's a key point for many customers, like ADAC as well, because our list of sub-processors is simple. It's just us, nobody else. Yeah, and that's a key selling point for us, at least here in Europe. Doesn't mean so much in the US, but here in Europe, it's a key point for many customers. That they say, I really like the fact you're independent and you have your own, that you have everything under European law, that you follow things like RTBF and GDPR and Schrems 2 and what else. So that's a key point. Let me just add two things here. Of course, the data center in Frankfurt and in Switzerland for the DACH market especially are both key. Yeah, so that these are the other two reasons.
Are you finding this working internationally in, say, Asia? Because an awful lot of countries are getting data protection laws based on EU GDPR, and a lot of American companies don't seem terribly familiar with how GDPR thinks, even if they dot the I's, they don't cross the T's, they don't really understand what it's all about. So I'd have thought for any country using GDPR derived legislation, they would find somebody who's actually from Europe quite useful. Do you find this?
Yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes, because they understand that Europeans usually get the point of data protection better than companies from other regions. Yeah, so whether it's US or China or whatever, or Russia, I mean, they're interesting enough that many of our competitors actually either have an American background, a Russian background, or a Chinese background. Yeah, I leave it to you to figure that out. Yeah, you're journalists, so I guess you're going to be a little bit investigative now. Sorry?
I wouldn't trust any of them.
There you go.
Hold my data.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because one of them really have the Chinese background and they even do data processing out of China.
Yeah.
Right? And you get really weird arguments like, oh, but the data is on Azure storage in Frankfurt. I'm saying true, and you can't access that from China? I mean, doesn't make any sense. Yeah, but it's encrypted, true, but they must have the key.
Yeah.
Otherwise they can't do the job. So yeah, if the same company is talking about AI all the time, I would be worried about this if you put all your data into the hands of a Chinese company, which are like AI a lot. And then you just have to ask the question like, what is the list of the customers? What prices are they paying? I mean, you all guys know what ChatGPT and other tools can do these days. So therefore, I'm not sure if I would do this.
We also talk about the Chinese law. It's, if you don't know what the laws are applying to particular companies,
you're raising a very good point, because a Chinese citizen is required to assist the government without telling anybody to get access to anything they want. Yeah, so I find that scary personally, but
that's sort of true in America too, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's sort of true in America too, isn't it? Not quite
yeah,
so
right.
blatant, but
yeah, and this is the big conflict, as you're rightly raising it, between the US and here, that still they have to give access and they don't have to tell you.
yeah.
So anyway, so that's the reason why customers like us. And if they really want to find us, they find us now even in the German website. So there you go. Ta-da. Good. So let's show the product. Yeah, if you don't have any further questions at this point, but let's see how that goes.
So also welcome from my side. I'm Markus. I'm a sales guy in the DACH region. Before I start, when you can order socks on Amazon, you can use and configure Keepit. It's very easy. It's very simplicity, but I show this in how you can create a connector, or you can set up a first backup in less than 5 minutes. First of all, you must sign in an empty account. You must agree our service terms, our data processing agreement.
That might take longer than 5 minutes to read.
I say the configure, not to read. So now I choose the workload. So for this demo, I choose Office 365. You click here to say, okay, I need to create a global admin just for the first backup. We make first a full backup and afterwards 2 incremental backups every day, every 12 hours. So now I create a connector. Connector is the gateway between our cloud to the Microsoft tenant. So then I choose the name. So it's, yeah.
Do you have to remain global admin?
No.
No.
Good question. Very good question.
So
just for the initial setup.
yeah. So this is a short summary what you can do from your Keepit side. You can do a backup, you can do a restore, etc. So I click accept. And we are now in the Keepit overview. Normally we are done. You can figure something here, but you can, when you say, okay, I'll find this the configuration, you can say start backup. That's all. But you can some little bit configures here. You can say, okay, I want to backup from Office 365 all users, all groups, or you can say, okay, I don't need test groups, I don't need security groups, and you say apply, and you see all these users they are in this group, they don't backup, and I say okay, and start backup. That's all. It's less than 2 minutes to start your first backup, And they have some features here. You can also set a retention policy.
Just wait a second.
Yeah.
You just go back. Just to be clear, that was it, right? If you back up one user or 50,000 users, 50 or 100,000, whatever, doesn't matter. You don't have to configure individual machines. You don't have to configure any storage. You don't have to configure anything. Yeah, that's everything you do. It's done. Not more, not less. Yeah, so imagine how that worked in the past. Yeah, when you had to do a lot of setups for IT systems and all to get everything done. Yeah, this is how fast you can do it.
You say in teams, groups and teams, is that including all the chat data?
Yes.
I have one question which may be very stupid, but how do you handle the life cycle of users, onboarding and offboarding of users during the organization, lifetime? So people leave, people join.
Mm-hmm.
Is this inherited or?
So we only, so what we count, so in terms of consumption, what we count is your active users. We don't look into the history.
Yeah, no, I wasn't meaning from the consumption perspective, but I was meaning from the initial configuration perspective. So if you're backing up security groups, I suppose that this is managed automatically. However, if you're disabling the security groups,
so these things are evaluated every time a backup starts.
Okay.
Which means that as you add people into your company, if you have said that I want to back up everyone or a number of groups, as more people join those groups, they will be included in the next.
right? Okay.
So there's no.
So you have a kind of disclaimer for admins to recommend them to, do that based on groups and not based on manual things, so that they don't forget how the users.
Yes.
2 years down the line.
It almost works like that automatically because no one really wants to sit and enable 50,000.
Obviously,
Yeah,
it's more of a kind of a stupidity disclaimer. Right?
Yeah, but it is. I mean, and we see other. I mean, we see other products where basically you have to upload a CSV file of the users you want to back up. Which is like you have to do that every day in a live company.
Yeah,
because people come on all the time. So, but yes, it should.
Okay.
You're motivated to do it in a simple way where everything just works.
What about retention times?
Yeah, you can set up the retention time from 1 year to 99 years. It's like unlimited.
But do you set it for everything, or can you set it separately as well?
You can, so you have no limits how many connectors you are creating. So you can, a lot of groups in one connector, the other groups another connector. The first connector is for 5 years retention policy, the other for 99 years.
Especially in
HR, etc. Gold users, something like that.
Do you have the ability to, let's say, configure use the same connector but with a different group of users with different retention policies?
Yes.
For example, I want to have a better retention policy for my VPs, whatever, or VIPs in the organization.
Yes, that's what I say. So
Okay.
That's the whole idea behind the workload connectors. Yes,
Okay. So you can have multiple instances of the same connector. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
you can also set up a connector for each of these workloads. For Exchange one,
Okay. Yeah, you
doesn't make sense, but you can do it. And you can also make connectors for each of these groups, like HR, gold users, etc. So that's possible.
Can I have a quick question? What happens in the background? Specifically, Office 365 probably has a lot of data, chat, and pictures, and so on. When you move the data to the server more than 2 kilometers away, do you actually compress the data? Is it a lot smaller? Is it cheaper thus?
The data that we move out of, for example, Microsoft, we use the same APIs we use the publicly available APIs. We have no backroom deals with Microsoft. So we have to use publicly available APIs. So before we get data in are the formats that are native to the Microsoft ecosystem. When we pull the data out, so we transport that over the internet, and that's via the normal HTTPS, so the encrypted connections as standard. Once we get the data in, yes, we do compress it and we deduplicate it, and then we store it. So, and in terms of networking, I mean, we run our own networking infrastructure, and it happens in some of our regions, Frankfurt, for example, Microsoft has their own networking organization, and they simply reach out to us and say, we can see that we are exchanging a lot of traffic or internet exchanges. How about we just, come with the fiber? So they did that. And it's not a service you can buy. It's just something that they see that when they also have, I'm sure they have a fiber to Amazon, even though they're not going to say it, because as soon as they have a lot of traffic moving somewhere, they will just optimize their own costs.
So they do it out convenient for themselves and
Exactly, and yeah, it works out for everyone.
Yeah.
So we have that in certain these really high speed things.
Do you integrate with third-party solutions for things like directory services, privileged user management, stuff like that, where you have to be consistent with what that third-party system is doing?
I'm not sure I understand exactly.
Well, if somebody is being regarded as a non-privileged user, therefore they can't access some data, it would be silly if in your system they were allowed to access the backup.
Yes. So there's no, and that's a very good point. So there's no, if your company is using 365 and using Keepit for backup, then of all of the employees in the organization that have 365 accounts, they will not have Keepit accounts.
Right.
So you will have a small number of administrators and maybe internal IT and other people who you can create in the Keepit environment, and you can assign the appropriate roles. But you will have to go in and manually set up, each person who needs access to the backup data set needs to be configured specifically.
But I'd quite like to see that. I mean, I could agree that you don't have to have the same number of accounts on each, but I'd quite like to see some kind of automated consistency check benefit.
Yeah.
You have given this person administrative access in getting the backups, but you prevent them from accessing
Yes.
more data.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. So the reason we do have these separate identities and separate access rights in the Keepit ecosystem. We do integrate with something like a single sign-on solution, for example, if you wish to use that. But actually, some companies actively do not want that, because you have this idea that you really want your backup to be separate.
Okay.
So if someone compromises your primary directory, for example, and compromises your primary data set, you don't want them to automatically also have access to your backup.
I agree there can be reason for that, but also stupidity. People may not have realised it's an issue.
It's
It's
a compromise, and as we invent more and more foolproof systems, the nature comes up with bigger fools. Bigger race, I guess.
So, okay, when you're ready and say, okay, this is my configuration, you can start your backup. So the first backup starts, and afterwards, when the backup is done, I show you on the other side of the demo, you find our dashboard from Office 365. There's a short overview, how many users, how many Teams groups, how many SharePoint sites are backupped, how many backup jobs are run in the last week or 2 weeks, you can choose here. And when does the next backup will start? In 2 minutes, so the last backup was 12 hours ago. And that's just the dashboard. The first view, when you log in, it's the first dashboard view. So when we go to the connectors, so we have our backup. It's very important to back up your data, but it's more important to get the data very easy, very fast back. So how can I make a restore? So we have here on the connector side a restore wizard. I choose restore. So I show you a restore in 6 clicks, and you can restore all your infrastructure, the whole tenant, or just one user. It's always the same. You go next. You choose a snapshot, you know that's a good snapshot, it's not infected, etc. It's like this one on Sunday. I go next. I say I want to restore Exchange. I go next. In this case, I show you, I select all users, all groups, all data they're in. I say I want to restore all these things here. I go next. Now I can say, okay, I need an in-place backup and skip all duplicates, or a rename all duplicates. I say rename all duplicates. I go next, and there's a short summary, how many users, what kind of method I used, and I click restore, and that's all. The data restored. Just 6 clicks, less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, and the work from Monday and Tuesday is gone, since it was from Sunday.
Yeah, you can choose your snapshot. Yeah, you can choose a snapshot. So when you
That's
guys,
just
yeah.
It's the nature of backup.
For purity, right?
Yeah.
Question on that. You keep the data, assuming maybe the question was asked before, I'm not 100% sure, but assuming that we are facing a catastrophic loss of data, meaning my accounts have been wiped, whatever, and the last level of result is your backups. What happens? Do I need to create a new account, and can you restore to a new account using that? So would you connect to the new account and then you perform the restore from the old one?
Yeah, you usually create a new Office tenant, or in the case of Office 365, you create a new tenant and then you restore.
Okay, good.
Right.
So you can do this kind of full recovery there. It's really good.
When you have an outage of one data center, you always store 4 copies to every data center. And when the complete data center has an outage, does it automatically go the restore to the still alive data center, or is there some manual interaction? The administrator must switch from the primary data center that is broken to
So the architecture is we run active on the 2 data centers. So all of the data is sent in copies to, but all of the compute runs active. So sometimes your backup job will execute on one data center, sometimes from another. And if we are upgrading a server or have a downtime or something, then it will just always execute from the other side. And same as when we're operating software, we do that on one side and then on the other side, so customers generally don't really see any.
The 4 copies scheme is fixed, or is there some customers that they want a third location, or they want to do some?
It's a conversation we've had over time. It's not something we're currently offering. So it's the same scheme for everyone. But I mean, there's nothing would stop us from offering this. It's just a matter of instead of willingness to pay for it.
Silliest backup failure I ever met was merchant banking said it didn't want to be backed up because it was too important to do its own backups. Then it stopped doing its own backups, didn't tell anybody else. So I'm convinced that you need to have recovery tests throughout your backup regime. It occurs to me that you could suggest recovery test regimes, and you can actually check whether or not they probably advise to check whether or not those tests have been run. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, we have so-called customer success managers, which are working actively with each customer. Yeah, so they're actually looking at this like, when have you done the last restore? Do you really understand how to do it? If you're going to look at configuration, yeah, if they spot anything that makes no sense or is bot compared to other customers, then they're going to erase that and discuss it.
I'm more worried about stupidity than I am about enemy action.
Well, okay,
Perfect. So easiest to do a restore, and there comes a question up against the RTPF button or RTPF label. When I go into the users, that's the connector of M365. There's all data there. I can click on users. I can switch of all these users. I switch for Alex, and I say, okay, assign to RTPF. I
left for those.
Left the company. Yeah, I go next, and he's assigned. And you can say I can have no exit to entry to his data, etc. I can work on Alan, but not on Alex. He's blocked for me, and I can only do this just log in for like a master admin. The 7 other roles can't do this and can't see the data anymore. When he's back or you need the data for losing, etc., you go to RTPF, I go to Alex, say reassign, he is back. I go next, remove, and when I go back to the connector of 365, I go to users, Alex is back, and I can configure, I can see the data, etc.
So here's one big question: what happens in the background? That's yeah. So you want to talk about this later then, when you?
I think so. I mean, so for now, so as you see, we mark the data. What happens is, so in order to comply with RTPF, it seems that the consensus is, and as far as I know, it hasn't been deeply tested in court, but it seems to be the consensus and has been for years that you have to remove such data from your primary systems.
Yeah.
But you also have to have a backup. So what we need to do as a backup provider is we need to give you a tool so that you don't accidentally put the data back onto your primary systems. And that is what we do here. So we mark them. If someone attempts to say, okay, we're not going to restore these data, they're marked. But if someone were to attack your backup system and gain access, we don't want them to just go in and be able to mark all of your data and then ransomware your primary data, and then you have no way out. That is why you mark them and you can unmark them. So an administrator can go in and unmark them. So you can actually.
That makes sense to me as a data scientist. But as a lawyer, I want to know whether the courts agreed this was an adequate solution or not.
Yes. And that seems, as far as I know, it has not been properly tested in court. But this is sort of this seems to be the consensus that.
Well, nobody wants to test it. If they do, they might not like find out.
No. And you would have serious issues with lots and lots of backup systems where you would need to, what would you even do at an 8-year-old tape? You had to do a file about it.
Yes.
But there's an element to it which is kind of, let's say, hidden isn't the right word, but as we're marking the data in a similar way, we're marking deleted data. And so our file system can't delete, which also helps us to protect ourselves against any attacks. We'll cover that. Okay, fine, good.
One question on that. So I can totally get it when something is pulled back after a couple of days, even after a year. But is your infrastructure capable of getting the data back after 7 years, and is that as easy as it is now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So the browsing you see here, that is the same regardless of whether it's a 7-year-old data set or yesterday's data set.
Or in other words, it's only hot storage.
Yeah, that's.
I
didn't want to ask what is in your data center, but is it all on hot storage? Okay.
Yeah, that's all hot.
Suppose your data is in quote-unquote Excel, and you find that you can't read data from version 1 of Excel in version 3 of Excel. You can get the data back, but it may not be readable in your current.
Yeah, there are things we cannot solve of that sort, right? So when someone has the WordPerfect 5.1 document and the
Well, I don't expect you to solve it, but I expect you to warn people about it, I guess.
Yeah, it reminds me of a question when I was at Lotus, if you remember that company, Lotus 123. Some of you are my age at least, so therefore I get to remember Lotus 123, but I was there and I was selling to the saving banks in Germany. They asked me if I could get a guarantee from the company that is backwards compatible 50 years. I said, sure. Try that from an American company. Yeah, so, I mean, these are the kind of challenges you have.
Interesting point. I was looking after Lotus, but one point, had to maintain every single version because the bank was sure that it was totally dependent on what it did, had no idea how these things had been written, and was scared that some of the macros might change behaviour if we went up to that's wrong on all sorts of methods.
Trying to mention the macros because these guys also have a fancy idea with their own macro language, which should be done through a meta layer work either with Excel or with Word. So saving banks in Germany have their own languages. Okay, I think we're done with the demo. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you?
To me, actually, yeah.
To you? Okay, perfect.
But I'm not saying that much because exactly.
Yeah.
I'm the new one in the class. I'm the new CISO. I've been to Keepit for 1.5 months. So I'm listening to Jacob also about our product. I came from background from the intelligence service. I actually was used to look into disasters because I was a police officer originally. So working in NATO, working in the Danish intelligence service as CISO, it's about classified system. It's about protecting your data very, very well. Now we're all into the cloud. I also been to Verizon, the big American company working with clouds. So I'm getting this security and feeling of safety when you put things in the cloud, where it's abstract, where your data is actually going, is what I like by Keepit. Because being a CISO, being a CIO, having your data in the cloud, but actually also knowing that it is locally stored in your region and that it's securely stored is crucial to me at least. When you look at NIST, it's identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Keepit is very good at you need to identify your asset. You need to know what you do a backup from, you need to be able to recover, and that's where we come in, because you need to work actively with your recovery, and that is something I think we do very, very well, because we are working like actively. You can work actively in your backup, which is unusual. When I was That's
an interesting point, that you need configuration management, because if you don't know what you've got, where it is, who's responsible, who's using it, you've got no way, when people say, is it secure? If you don't know you've got it, how can you say it's secure?
Exactly. If you try to protect everything, you protect nothing. You need to sort of leverage your data. You need to have data governance well implemented. And this is also why I want backup more in front, more to the board and to the C-level. Because when I was CISO for the tax department, I was like, yeah, I have someone handling the backup. But especially exactly identifying your crucial assets and making sure that you can recover those in a prompt way, that's really important. And it's something that many enterprises lack from, because they think they have secured everything, but they don't have sufficient data governance. So this is something we can help them with. Also this working active with your data and training the recovery phase, so that it's not something when everything gone wrong and when you're hit by ransomware and you cannot access anything or your cloud has gone down. It's not that we don't trust Microsoft or some of the others. Of course we do. It's very good products. But you have your data in a data center somewhere. You're even able to have it in your basement. It's not something we have done, but you would be, as a government, be able to have it in your own data center and be able to work actively with it. I think that's a big strength to your recovery, your business continuity plan, and to your data strategy.
And one of the issues I met was people doing disaster recovery. I don't like the term disaster recovery, but
business continuity.
Business continuity, yeah. Anyway, leaving aside, but they had a separate silo so that they didn't interrelate with the information IT stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's a vast amount of information about the importance of data, the value of the stuff, who is responsible for it, which the information computing people had, which was never shared with the rest of the organisation. Yeah. And I think that this sort of thing is huge value for the organisation, just understanding what its assets are. Yeah, exactly. And also understanding what crucial data you have. In the intelligence service, you had like one document in a suitcase. That's easy to handle, but that's not the way the world works anymore. Mm-hmm. So when you put things in the cloud, and many people have put things into 365, which they need data classification on at least, and they need special security around it. And that is something that we will work with our customers to sort of work with them on, data governance, and also this, that you work directly in your solution on a day-to-day basis. You recover data, you know that it actually works. It's not something you put out of the basement once everything has gone wrong. And of course, stuff that you decide isn't important enough to recover is probably stuff you shouldn't be using in the first place. So you can then perhaps prune your systems a bit. Yeah, exactly, and test it. But there's also, you talked about the GDPR and the various regions we're in. We have a lot of compliance. Growing as a company, we are also moving into other regions that have other requirements. That's also from a security perspective important that we actually work with those compliance regulations. US, we have FedRAMP, and we have something in Australia too. And of course in Europe, we have TSAC, we have GDPR. Every region has its own. So building a solid foundation based on ISO 27000 and based on NIST 800 series, that's also something we look very much into. So that was just a short presentation on our security plan, and now over to the technical.
Yeah, so I'll just also take a look at my notes. I wanted to talk a little bit about where we come from, because I think that is very helpful for people to understand how we also differentiate from what else is happening in the market. So,
Jacob, sorry to interrupt.
Excuse?
We have about half an hour.
Okay,
left,
great. Yes, I will. Yeah, I will.
We can carry on talking during lunch, but in terms of slides and things we have.
Yeah.
How many more slides are there? Because I do have business questions.
Yeah. I have 5 slides total.
Wow, that's good. That's impressive.
But we could.
Very good.
That's an hour and a half of talking. So anyway, I actually started working with a CEO back in the late 90s. We studied engineering at the university and happened to live at the same dormitory. So we started doing business things at that time. During the zeros, we had a somewhat successful hosting business. So both doing end customers. So everybody needed a website. So this was before Facebook. Everyone needed a website, small businesses and individuals, so consumers. We had a hosting business that did that fairly successful in Scandinavia. We also had a pure software business. So we built a software product. We sold licenses for that. In the around 2010 or so, we wanted to do something more. We needed a new product. So we had this idea that everyone knows someone who's lost their wedding photos. So backup is clearly something that people need and no one really does. And we had this idea that we could build the software, but with the hosting experience, we could host this as a service, like software as a service, which was not really something that was talked about yet at the time.
Still argue they don't need backup, they need recovery.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. So, but there's a lot of assumptions in this. So,
if you want recovery, you need backup. So.
Yeah, you can say that. True. So anyway, unless you have AI. So anyway, we went ahead and built the system based on a tape storage backend. So IBM TSM, we had one of the largest tape libraries in Denmark actually at the time. And we made this solution to back up your laptop computer, your home computer, and try to sell that to consumers, which was rather unsuccessful because everyone thought it was a great idea, but nobody wanted to pay for it. But there were also other things. So having based ourselves on tape storage, there were things we couldn't do. So we had this vision of how should this work. Everything should be instant. You shouldn't have to wait for a thing. I mean, so like we showed before, browsing the data set, we want to click around in the data set, and if I click on a file, it needs to come immediately. And we couldn't do that. So we started over. We scrapped the whole thing. And then around 2014, we started from scratch. And that's where we started with our own infrastructure, so our own storage infrastructure first and foremost. So we designed an object store. I will come back to that. With the hosting experience, we were able to put everything in our own data centers and actually start offering the service entirely running on our software and our infrastructure. We support these 8 workloads today, so 365, Salesforce, and the others. But we also see that the market is changing again now. So everyone started to move into 365. But if you have a mid-sized company, you will have people in every corner of the organization buying new services all the time. People seem to just be waking up to the fact that they absolutely need backup of the 365. But 90% of customers of 365 have no backup. They're waking up to this realization. No one has really woken up yet to the realization that if you have a couple of thousand employees in your company, you're probably using around 200 different cloud services. And you most likely have backup of none of that. So that is a direction we are moving in as Keepit. So we are trying to position ourselves as a platform for cloud data protection, not as a point solution for just 365.
When you're backing up the application data, you don't need to back up the apps themselves. You can get to store them from the App Store.
Yes. So the idea is to take the data from the applications.
So what happens if you've got 2,000 employees with 150 apps, and each of them have the same data and 150 different app data files?
We will be able to deduplicate between the people.
How do you handle conflict if you find that the same data is held in 3 different places, but it's different in each one?
So if they're different, then okay, I'll get back to that on the object store, because it's if the data is different, then it wouldn't conflict because it would hash differently in the deduplication.
You need to know that it's called the same thing,
yes,
and that it's different, because when you try to use it, you've got a choice as to which one you use.
Yes. So we don't deduplicate based on file names. So the whole storage infrastructure is a content addressable object store, which means we have a cryptographically strong hash generated over the content of each object, which means that in practical terms only truly identical objects would have the same hash.
It's,
So.
And if your technology has a bug in it, you've lost the whole data. If your deduplication and hashing algorithm ever gets a bug, you've lost the entire data store.
You would lose an object. But I mean, so if a customer were to have two objects that would be different but hashed to the same thing,
I was thinking about the engine itself crashing. You know,
I mean, so if our software breaks, we will have a problem until we fix it.
Yeah.
We're not going to. I mean, we do keep the data on multiple systems. So I mean, we have a very high assurance that we have a great deal of confidence that we're not going to lose all of your data from a simple software problem. But I mean, that's the same for Microsoft. I mean, what happens if something happens and all the data
Microsoft's
Yeah.
Okay, another question.
Yes.
so the underlying solution is object storage for you guys?
Yes. I will talk about that. So I will get right to that. So because if you will switch the slide, please.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I can do that.
that's a picture from one of our data centers. This is Oscar, and these are storage servers. So I just wanted to show you what's actually a picture of the actual physical platform.
Should I click?
No, please. So if you have a cloud service and you want to back up that cloud service, you need to find a location for your backup data that is different from where your cloud service runs. So if you're a customer and you run on Salesforce, you need to know that you cannot put your backup data on AWS, because that's where your Salesforce data probably lives. If you're on 365, you cannot put it on Azure. And so what happens is that if you have 200 different cloud services, or just 3, where can you store your backup data? And will the vendors tell you if they switch the underlying service? So this problem gets completely unsolvable for customers. This is one of the reasons that we went ahead and said, okay, we will not go on AWS or Azure, we will actually run on our own infrastructure, because that completely solves this problem for the customers. We can absolutely guarantee that the backup data we store in Keepit is not going to be the same place as where your primary data lives. This is truly unique, and this is a huge unique selling point for us, that we can make this hard guarantee, which is very difficult to get generally. So that was a controversial choice at the time, because everyone was going to public cloud. We went ahead and designed this object store because we knew that we were going to have to store a lot of data over a very long period of time. So we have customers who pay for 100 years of retention. And if we put something on a server today, it's certainly not going to be readable from that server in 100 years. So magnetic media will demagnetize, and even if it didn't, you wouldn't want a 100-year-old server in a data center, even if it would work. So we knew that this was a challenge we had to address, and also we knew that there was no system we could buy off the shelves from any of the storage vendors where they would promise us that we would have an upgrade cycle for 100 years. So we had to go ahead and build something for that. So that we did. We knew that we wanted to base it on disks because we wanted instant access to everything. We knew that we wanted high utilization of the disks for economical reasons. So there was a whole set of criteria that we knew we wanted. We wanted to be able to replicate between data centers. From the hosting business, we had a lot of experience running really complicated storage systems that fail in really complicated ways. So we had learned some lessons from those years also. So we ended up building our own object store from scratch. So we completely control where on which disk is which byte written, when, where, and why. So this gives us a number of benefits.
Disk, you mean hard disks?
Yes.
And you've got a flash layer before that? Or
Nope.
is everything?
Nope. So as it is today, we have so the metadata. So the metadata fits inside RAM, and then the object disks themselves are on spinning disks today. So flash is not yet viable, but
So you have some pretty decent memory in the machines.
actually not compared to a general purpose file server, because the really interesting thing about, very few companies go out and build a file system, because if you want to build a general purpose file system, that is an enormously complicated task. We didn't want that, because we don't want to be able to modify objects, for example. Modifying objects is incredibly complicated to build in a file system. We didn't have to build that. So we got a lot of performance benefits, and it turned out to be an actually manageable scope. We could actually make this implementation and make it happen. And then we get these benefits that we have an immutable object store. So at the API level, even if someone were to compromise our network and be able to send raw API commands to the object stores, they couldn't send a modify command or delete command because we didn't implement it. Because
you take the object from Office 365
yes.
and just back up,
yes.
or do you have a bigger object and put multiple objects into it?
So we have a maximum object size. So there's a lot of design choices, of course, in the object store. So we have a maximum object size, and if you have an object that's larger than that, then we slice it into smaller objects. So that's how that works. So today, today we run on Dell hardware, as you can see in the data center, and there's nothing. The really cool thing about having this, owning the technology stack, is we are not tied to any special hardware or any special equipment from any certain vendor. So if we wanted to change from Dell tomorrow, we could just do that. I suppose in theory we could run off Raspberry Pis with USB hard drives. We wouldn't want that, but there would be nothing in theory stopping that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, but it gives us, so as a vendor, that gives us a lot of assurance that we can actually manage. When you have, if you have natural disasters or other things that makes it difficult to get certain hardware, we have a lot of flexibility managing this. So, yeah, let's move to the next one. Actually, the whole sovereignty thing. We covered that so much. I'm going to basically skip over that. I'm just going to say that when you look at these public clouds, so if you look at Azure, for example, that's an incredibly impressive machine, and Microsoft is extremely good at operating that. We're not going out and claiming that we're better or more secure than Microsoft. They run 365 on top of this Azure machine, and you can do all sorts of things inside Azure. The really important thing to realize is that Azure is one infrastructure. So as we saw with the storm hack on the 365 infrastructure, where a group of hackers had access to, across tenants, even across the government tenants in all of Western Europe, they had access because they had system level access. That could happen to Azure too, because it's one infrastructure. So even though you may in Azure be able to say, I want this data replicated to New York and Dallas, well, it's still on Azure. And if someone gains system level access to Azure, they can make all that go away. And that is why we keep hammering in this point about the actual separate infrastructure. We're not more secure than Microsoft, but we're separate. And that's the key thing. If Azure is compromised, we are probably not. If we are compromised, probably Azure is not. And that is the whole thing about the one ring to bind them all. You can't put everything in one. It doesn't matter if it's in two computers. If you have the same system running them. So I talked a little bit about resilience. So we saw this actually in the early days of COVID, where lots of the, so both on AWS and on Azure, they were spinning down workloads because they wanted to prioritize emergency services, which I guess was a good thing to do. If we had been running on public cloud, we would have been spun down. We would have had to tell our customers that, sorry, I mean, you can't have backup. We hope you can have it, next month or some other day. We would have no control. We would have no agency in this. So that is one more thing where we just really reap the benefits of running our own infrastructure. I mean, yes, we need to deal with inventory and shipping and things like that, but we're masters in our own house in that respect. We get to choose how confident we want to be that we won't have capacity problems. Yes, please. So finally, the way that we built the stack is going back to basics, right? Starting from a clean sheet, building an object store, building these backup engines, using efficient technologies for implementing this, that gives us some performance, some efficiency benefits. So those efficiency benefits, well, so they translate into, for example, us having less hardware in the data centers. So that means, less mining of raw materials. It means less power consumption. And it means a better bottom line for us. It allows us to sell the service to our customers at a reasonable cost. So we don't have to burn through venture capital in order to be competitive on price, which is something you should care about if you're a customer, because if you want someone to hold your data for 20 years, you don't want them running out of money. So that's really, I think that sort of covers where we came from, why we did the things we did, and also a little bit on how it has been working out for us.
Can you give some numbers for pricing? Because I wonder a little bit, you have your own worldwide infrastructure around your data centers, investment of millions or tens of millions dollars or euros. And so is it an expensive solution only for the bigger enterprises, or is it also suited for small mid-sized companies?
We're basically giving it away.
True. No, we have, as we mentioned earlier, we have 10,000, more than 10,000 customers. I would say probably 8,000 or so are small customers. If you're really on that level, it's usually around, let's say, €3-ish per user per month, what you pay for at least 5 backup as an example. If it goes up to large enterprise customers, of course, then it gets much cheaper. But for a small user or a small company, you should calculate something around €3. Big price.
We have a lot of sales also through MSPs actually. So smaller companies who don't even want to run their own IT will get it through an MSP. So there's a lot of really small customers there.
Possibly the most unbacked up data in a company is information inside people's heads.
Yes.
Have you thought of producing a machine learning capability as a front end to Keepit to actually extract information from people's heads, bring it onto a backup store so they can recover it?
I think that's a BaaS, brain as a service. I think that's an interesting idea. I will take notes.
With all that said, I mean, who do you think who are your competitors? I'm thinking of Veeam, who back up Microsoft 365 and Salesforce. I'm thinking of Haiku, who launched a major, as they saw it, SaaS backup thing, explaining, like I'm sure you evangelise about the lack of SaaS products which are backed up by customers. So who do you see your competitors as?
Yes, please.
So it depends a little bit on what market we are operating. Here in the DACH market, we mainly see companies like Veeam, as you mentioned them. You see AvePoint, you see Rubrik, you see Recity, you see what's semantic? Veritas. Veritas, yeah. So there are about 20 companies which are offering on the surface a kind of similar service. However, the big differentiator is really like how we do it, and things like our own infrastructure, usability, EO law, and these bullet points I had on this one slide are really making a difference. So usually when we go into POCs, proof of concepts, and usually any larger company is operating that, I would say the majority of them, and majority means like way above 50%, we're going to win because customers realize that this functionality is there, the ease of use is there, and all these other big points here, which we ticked already before.
And it's cheaper?
Let me say it this way: we are rarely beaten by the price if we don't want to be. Yeah, because we have our costs under control, thanks to Jacob. Because everybody else has to pay, because none of them actually operating their own data system or own storage, own infrastructure. So we have our costs under control. So when Microsoft raises the price on Azure storage, then that will raise sooner or later the price also for the customer.
It's a really good point on the price actually, because it's common for, so if you compare products, then there's the price and then there's oftentimes there's the storage cost. So if we were to compare to Veeam pricing, Veeam would have a license cost. And then we would be told that, oh, we're more expensive than them, but they have the license cost and then they have the storage cost.
And the operating cost.
And then, yes. So there's a lot, it's complicated. And the other thing is we have, we don't have any other fees. I mean, you pay for the seats and then that's it. Where it's also common in different products that they will say that, restore is free, asterisk. And then the asterisk says it's free unless you have to restore more than 10 gigabytes. So unless you restore more than half a mailbox, it doesn't cost you extra. But they have to do that because they're on public cloud. So they get, so the vendor, the backup vendor gets...
Or we see dirty stuff like you get 5 gigabyte per user, which is literally nothing. And then you get charged afterwards. So that's the reason why the point, let me go back to the slide here quickly.
How do you manage the egress cost?
So we don't, so the thing is, so we already bought the hardware. And with the usage patterns we have on our storage systems, we don't have performance issues. So we're not with the volume of data and the usage patterns that are there's no pressure on the systems. Networking wise, we have we run our networking infrastructures. We do the internet BGP routing and all that to the internet exchanges and all that. And there's we don't have costs against Microsoft or anyone else for accessing the APIs, because these are the publicly available APIs that their customers use also. So we don't have, we made an investment, of course, in the hardware, and we make an investment in the internet connectivity. But all in all, it's actually, considering the amount of customers that we can have in a region, having these multiple 100 gigabit links to internet exchanges and elsewhere, it's not a high cost. This is not we don't pay for the traffic.
But does the customer pay for the traffic?
No. So we just exchange the traffic. So it's bilateral. So all of the big providers, so Amazon and Microsoft and all of these, we just exchange traffic. We agree bilaterally that we're not going to charge each other for it.
But you do that for your data, so that's also for your customers. As soon as I become a customer of you, it's all within that.
Yes. And if you download directly from us, then there's no third parties. Then it's just the internet links and.
Okay, so one big question that I still have, and I ask that question more often to others as well. I see the logos, and most of them won't ever go bankrupt. But what if? You've got a load of data, and Microsoft goes away.
So you mean the zombie apocalypse scenario, as we call it?
Yes.
Still can happen, right?
Yes.
If Microsoft goes away, then there's a lot of people who bet on Microsoft.
Can I ask a different question, but maybe which is linked to what Aaron is saying here? I back up all of my Office 365 data. For whatever reason, I need to move away because of whatever, something's gone wrong, I need to move away to Google Workspace, for example.
Yes.
Because something has gone so wrong with Microsoft that they need to move. Do you offer the ability to restore the data to another?
So this was an early business idea, and we went away from that. So we don't have a built-in service for facilitating migrating between clouds. We don't have that.
Okay.
But you will have instant access to your data. You can download them, and some of the data you can upload in Google Workspace and use immediately. So all your documents and all your emails, for example, once you've downloaded them, you can put them into Google Workspace. That will work.
And
Your SharePoint is not going to work.
Especially with the upcoming announcements, let's put it that way. You've got the big boys covered at the moment, but you will go lower in the stack.
Yes.
And you will have companies that...
Some of them will fail. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you have to think about, okay, how can we offer something to the customers when we have all the data?
I think it's very clear that, so there's some long, on this journey to becoming this platform where we support hundreds or thousands of workloads, there's clearly going to be some long-term perspectives that we are going to have to see happen, because I think you're right that there will be opportunity for business to be made on some of those things.
I've got one last question, and I know we're slightly over time, but maybe I missed that one. But what's next for you? I mean, you cover these SaaS workloads pretty much perfectly. We've seen that you have those connectors, which are very easy and seamless to implement. And obviously, you have some way of connecting to the cloud, providers and pull the data. What's next? Are you planning to do, let's say, data protection for some other, let's say, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, like Kubernetes, and even how do you move laterally within your customers to get more revenues?
So far, the strategy has been to stick with the SaaS. These other things are regularly coming up. So I would guess that something would happen.
So it's on the roadmap.
On that.
On the roadmap initially.
But right now it's the many more SaaS workloads.
Okay.
That's the immediate focus.
And are you looking for more partners, and what is your relationship with the global system integrators? Because this is a product, the GSIs as well.
Yes. So we're trying to build up, we're building up.
There's multiple ways how we work with partners. I mean, it's SaaS on the one hand side, like OEMs we have. So if you go to Zerto or AXA, for example, they use our product and white label it. If you find a SaaS data protection product from those two companies, for example, that's actually our product. So then on the other side, we have MSPs, and also GSIs kind of belong to the MSP kind of batch. Interesting enough, they don't really offer very often services, or they do it the old-fashioned way. So very often those guys rather have their instance, putting it into the data center, trying to operate that because that's more convenient for them. And was so far very often more price efficient for them because they can use all the people which they have in their projects anyway. But the companies are start moving away from that because they see the limitation and they don't have the coverage. Because you asked rightfully, like, who's our competitor? There's one element we kind of missed here in the explanation before. So it's maximum functionality as well as coverage. Because you don't get this coverage of all these workloads from any other SaaS data protection provider here in the market right now. So you might get M365, you might get Salesforce, you might get Google Workspace, whatever. But the whole thing here, the big Microsoft coverage, as well as all the new stuff we're going to do, connecting any other SaaS application, you won't get. So these GSIs will come sooner or later to work with us. The bigger system houses like Bechtle in Germany, for example, do already. And there are plenty of partners we have in all kinds of sizes, small ones as well as big ones.
So you're looking for more partners, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, again, so on Microsoft, which is really well established, 90% of customers have nothing. They have no backup. It's not like we want to go out and push the other vendors out and try to win them over. No. They just need something. And that's, I think that's the huge.
I was asked not to make a sales presentation here, but it's a very good point. 90% of M365 customers don't have a backup. So when I talked about, like, I missed the point, I mean 90% of the customers missed the point too. And on Entra ID is less than 1% who have a backup. And Entra ID is being attacked a lot. And so therefore the huge market opportunity for us, of course, but for others, and I think we're well suited. And the only reason why we're losing usually is because we're not there. So my usual take is 90% of the deals I lose because I haven't been at the table. Yeah, and partners play an important role there. So we have a 100% partner channel strategy. We only sell through partners to achieve that.
So NIS2 and Dora, if you
Oh, I love that.
bring up.
I love NIS2 and Dora. Dora's on your girlfriend.
Most businesses don't have backup.
Sorry?
If most businesses don't, what you're saying is that the risk is sufficiently low that you're likely to be able to continue in business even if you don't bother with backups.
Yeah.
I'd hate to say that, because my business is always saying you have to have backup and stocks, but a lot of people seem to be getting away with not bothering.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same with NIS2 and Dora, by the way. Yeah, so we were under the impression, of course, everybody must rush now into NIS2. It's almost like GDPR. Yeah, they will rush as soon as the first company has been sued, then pay a big fine.
Yeah.
Or somebody goes in jail because, as you will know, the board members are now personally liable. You can't delegate it. You can't outsource that risk to an insurance, to a D&O insurance. You can't. Yeah, it will happen, and then everyone will have
So it depends on the will of government, really, because if the government don't enforce the laws, nothing actually happens.
And again, in Germany, when they do a funky thing, say critics provider, critical infrastructure provider, they will be audited. They really have to be audited already in October. All the others who have to be compliant with NIS2 should be ready. Yeah, but they're not going to be audited in the first 2 years. So I can imagine what that happens. Yeah, so I would have, okay, fine. Yeah, so in 2 years we're working on it. Okay.
I believe, I have a question.
I just wanted to say I really like your presentation because I like the dynamic of it, and I think that the fact that you have 4 presenters makes it more dynamic, so it's really good.
Oh, thank you.
I like to ask peculiar questions. What is the most fun part of your job?
Of my job? Oh, so
it wasn't the PR way.
so I mean, I was the first developer basically in the company, right? So I used to write a lot of code, and then as the company has been growing, we got this investment in, and a lot of years ago now, these things have been completely changing. So I always thought, I didn't become an engineer to have to deal with people, but now I write very little code and I deal with a lot of people. I think it's been an amazing journey for me. I think that's this constant change of what I need to do. It has really been kind of a roller coaster, mostly going up.